Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. A loving wife, mother, sister, daughter, Nana to Lucy and Frankie, proud pet mommy and foster mommy and teacher extraordinaire. Betha, Dean, Haber's life and presence meant a lot to those who loved her and knew her in life, those she taught, and those four-legged friends to which she provided caring dignity. I admit that unlike so many of you, I didn't know Dean in life, only coming into contact with this family upon news of her death. That said, I had the opportunity to spend some time with her daughter, Amara, meeting Brian and Lucy and Frankie along the way too. Amara shared with me some about who her mother was in life. I learned about her caring heart, her marriage to her husband Bradley of blessed memory, her interests, her quirks, her relationships, her work, her many pets, and so on. You're going to hear more from Amara shortly, who will share her own reflections on her mother, offering a eulogy as an act of kavod, of honor to her. But let's take a moment to name that we are together today in a Jewish funeral home with a rabbi, me, having a memorial service for a woman who, though she threw in her lot with the Jewish people when she married Bradley, was not herself Jewish. But when chatting with Amara about this, we recognized Dean's deep connection to the Jewish people, and that this is what felt most appropriate. And you know, it is right now the Jewish pilgrimage festival of Passover, of Pesach, during which Jews retell the story of our liberation from Egyptian slavery and bondage. This is a universal story of redemption, one in which we note our ancestors' collective action against oppressive forces. As the Israelites were preparing to leave the land where a Pharaoh arose who did not know Joseph, who did not understand Egypt's former status as a haven of welcoming, and instead chose to oppress outsiders who were there in search of safety and security, we read in Exodus chapter 12, verse 39, V'gam erev rav Allah itam. Moreover, a mixed multitude went up with them, end quote, to leave Egypt. This is interpreted to mean that not only the Israelites were redeemed from the oppressive forces imposed by Pharaoh and his henchmen, but also Egyptians who could not abide these systems left with the Israelites, and God redeemed them too. The mixed multitude traveled with the Israelites through the wilderness, were present for revelation at Sinai, and with the Israelites entered the promised land. And today, we celebrate the life of a fellow traveler, a member of that community. Dean was one who I learned cared deeply about those most vulnerable, children who maybe needed a little extra time because of their birth date to enter first grade, and many vulnerable animals, and causes of justice, and causes of peace. Dean, as I learned, most certainly would have stood up to Pharaoh's system, as she always had just so much love and care to give to those most vulnerable. So some things I learned about her. I learned about the over 60 dogs that Dean rescued and provided dignity for at the end of their lives, no matter their challenges, keeping photos of each and every one of them. I learned about her endless love for her daughter, Amara. I learned about her loving, strong presence for her grandchildren, for Lucy and Franklin. I learned about her marriage to Bradley and how difficult it was for her when he died prematurely and shockingly in an automobile accident a decade ago, and how hard it was for her to process his death. I learned about her deep care and commitment for countless students, making a deep impact in the pre-FIRST program that she championed and cared so deeply about. I learned that she was a beloved teacher, doing work that meant so much to her, which makes sense since Amara told me that whenever they were out anywhere, if they came across a small child, she had to stop and play with and compliment that child. I learned that Dean was effusive in her feelings, that everything was always at level 10. It was at 100. Good food, the best she ever tasted. A baby, the cutest thing she ever saw. But as much as everything was the best, it might also go in the other direction. Traffic, always the worst she had ever been in, even if she said it every day. It's always the worst. Yep. But Dean, you were a good friend to so many. And today, we gather to celebrate you, your life, and your everlasting impact. My name's Rabbi Nathan Weiner. I'm a rabbi locally here in southern New Jersey. I'm also the incoming rabbi in July at Temple Har Zion in Mount Holly, New Jersey. It is an honor, truly on behalf of myself, my family, the team here at Platt Memorial Chapels, and Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, to be present with each of you today. To those who celebrate Passover, Chag Sameach, a happy Passover, and to those who are celebrating in the Christian tradition a blessed Holy Week this week and a happy Easter. Jewish tradition teaches that while the physical body is temporary, the soul is eternal, it is without end. So today, we gather for sacred purpose to pray for full and complete rest for Dean's body. We focus on on the fact that her soul, even in death, remains bound to the bond of life, to each of you, and we seek blessings for the continued elevation of her soul. So more formally, we gather today in memory of Betha Dean Haber. She's predeceased by her parents, Arnold and Patricia, of blessed memory, and of course her husband Bradley Haber, of blessed memory, next to whom she will be interred shortly at Locustwood. May their souls, God willing, be reunited in joy. She is survived by her daughter Amara and Amara's husband Brian, and her grandchildren Lucy and Franklin, and her siblings, her sister Donna and her husband Denny, her brother Hicks and his wife Cindy, and her sister Dawn. I pray I got every name correct. Good. May your love and care for one another, God willing, lift you all up and carry you through this difficult loss and transition. So to those gathered with us today in the chapel, welcome. We note that our live stream is also running too, and to those joining us today via live stream, welcome as well. Your presence is felt here with us in the chapel as we form one Kehila Kadosha, one sacred community today in service of Dean's Kavod, her honor. So the goal for our time together today is multifold. We have 2 mitzvot that we are performing, 2 commandments that we're paying attention to. First and foremost, it is to conclude the mitzvah of Kavod Hamet, of honoring the deceased. That is our primary intention right now. We keep our kavanah, that intention, on Dean's memory. Closer to the conclusion, graveside, we will transition to forming a community of consolation, performing a mitzvah called Nichum Avelim, comforting the mourners, upon the first recitation of the mourner's Kaddish, and continuing in service to that mitzvah, that commandment to comfort the mourners in the days, weeks, months, and years to come. It is a universal custom at moments of loss and grief across the Abrahamic faith traditions to look to Psalms when other words fail us. And as I mentioned at Loss and Grief, we most notably look to Psalm 23. I'm going to read it first in Hebrew, followed by a standard, admittedly masculine translation of it in English. If you are comfortable and wish to join with me in any language and all are in part, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, you're welcome to just receive it. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo achsar, bin oteshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchoti nahaleni, nafshi yeshoveh v'yancheni b'maglei tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech b'getz mavet lo irara ki atay madi, shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zorai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Amen. And from Kohelet, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what has been planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time for speaking. Now arrived at a time for speaking, as I welcome Amara and Brian up as Amara will share some words about her mother.
Today we gather to honor and remember my mom. A woman whose love was boundless, whose compassion ran deep, and whose life was defined by love. She was the first in her family to attend college, following her passion for teaching young children. She had a gift for making every child feel important, seen, and valued. For her, teaching was more than a career, it was an act of love. She poured her heart into her classroom, often spending her evenings and weekends creating the perfect lesson plans, crafting special activities, and finding small ways to make each child feel uniquely valued. In my 20s, during my graduate studies, I worked in a number of schools, and I saw firsthand how difficult teaching really is. Watching a talented teacher is like watching a conductor guide an orchestra. Every movement intentional, every part working in harmony. I remember telling my mom how impressed I was by those educators, the way they skillfully managed behaviors, cultivated respect, and nurtured a culture of kindness, all while ensuring their students mastered the necessary academic skills. I said, "Oh my God, Mom, teaching well is actually really, really hard." She said, "Yeah, no shit." So many young lives were shaped by her patience, her love, her talent, her celebration of childhood, and her belief in every child's potential. Carl Menninger, a psychiatrist, once said, "What the teacher is more important than what he teaches." And I agree. Like most in our family, she had an incredible heart for animals. For years, she volunteered with the Burlington County Animal Alliance as the foster coordinator, devoting herself to animals who were overlooked and forgotten. She and my dad fostered countless elderly dogs, keeping more than their fair share along the way. To her, they were never too old, too sick, or too broken. And even though she was fairly timid around horses, she supported my horse girl dreams as a child, toting me from barn to barn. Show to show, always pretending she knew what was happening, turning toward my dad's video camera and narrating, wow, that was the best round she'd ever had, when I had actually just humiliated myself in the ring. When I recently bought a horse for the first time in decades, she was overjoyed. She understood better than anyone how deeply that part of my life nourished me and how long I had waited to find my way back to it. Even as her health declined and she said few words, she would ask, "Did you get to ride today? Please find time to ride." She knew I was struggling and she knew where I could find my peace. And she loved me enough to worry about me, even though her world was falling down around her. My mom met my father in the restaurant of the Lancaster Hotel Host Resort, where she liked to remind us I was the waitress and he was my busboy. After multiple failed attempts at asking her out, she finally said yes and unknowingly opened the door to a beautiful life. Their bond was undeniable, rooted in a profound love that endured through life's ups and downs. 10 years ago, just before she was set to celebrate her retirement, we lost my dad suddenly and tragically. It was the kind of loss that takes your breath away and doesn't really give it back. I think she believed her story was ending there, that the brightest parts of her life had passed. But when Brian and I told her I was pregnant with Lucy, I saw her return to the world. I watched her come back to life. Her dream had come true. She was going to be a grandmother. When Lucy was born, she was the proudest Nana on earth. She was completely obsessed with Lucy, as you all know, relishing every tiny moment and milestone. She never missed a bath time or bottle, eagerly changed diapers, and joyfully spent hours playing on the floor, completely immersed in the wonder of finally being Nana. Nothing brought her more happiness than simply being present. Every quiet moment shared was a treasure to her. She then stood by us through our difficult journey with infertility. She held my hand through all the miscarriages, the surgeries, the appointments, the medications, the injections, the negative tests. She cried with me, hoped with me, and provided the financial support we needed to keep trying for our dream of another child. When I finally became pregnant with Frankie, she celebrated with a depth of feeling only someone who had walked the whole road with you could understand. "Oh my God, Amara," she said, "one boy and one girl. I can't stand it. It's perfect." Her bond with her babies, as she called them, was fierce and unconditional. She would have done anything to stay with them, fought for every moment, every memory. That's what makes this loss especially heartbreaking for me. Like my dad, she was robbed of time she so deeply deserved with them. And they lost the time they should have had with her, with both of them. I'll carry that pain with me always. And yet I'm so grateful for the time we did have. I'll always hold dear our trip to Disney for Lucy's 4th birthday and our annual trips down the shore. Those moments were everything she wanted. I'm mostly grateful we had her home with us these past few years to share in the magic of the mundane. Eggs for breakfast, fire pits in the fall, slow swinging in the hammock while spring blew in, sparklers on the 4th of July, grass stains, snowmen, splashy bath times, movies on the couch, goodnight kisses. Isn't it the simple, ordinary moments that quietly become everything? Over the past year, dementia took her from us in a way that no one should have to endure. The diagnosis came swiftly and the decline was heartbreakingly fast. Watching someone so full of life and love slowly disappear has been the hardest thing I've ever witnessed. She gave everything she had to her family, her students, her friends, her dogs. She was generous in love and utterly devoted to those she held dear. Though we grieve her loss, we carry her with us in every act of kindness, every tender word, every kiss to the nose of an old dog, every small joy shared with our children. I will miss you, Mom. I hope that you are somewhere beautiful, with one arm around Dad and the other holding a vanilla cone, surrounded by your old dogs and my old horses, with a good spot to sit and a clear view to watch your babies grow.
These beautiful thoughts and memories and dedications in mind, that we now move to the central prayer of a Jewish memorial service, El Malei Rachamim, which asks that as we prepare to inter Dean shortly, that her soul be granted true rest in God's warm embrace. I invite you, if you're physically able, to please rise. I'm going to read it first in the English translation, followed by chanting in the Hebrew. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant true rest upon the wings of the divine presence in the exalted spheres of the holy and pure, who shine as a resplendence of the firmament to the soul of Betha Dean Haber, who has gone to her eternal home. For charity has been donated in remembrance of her soul. May her place of rest be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, may the All-Merciful One shelter her with the cover of God's wings forever and bind her soul in the bond of life. The Lord is her heritage. May she rest in her resting place in peace. And let us say, Amen. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Tehorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Betha Bat Arnold, Shehalcha Le'olama, Ba'avor Shnadvu Tzedakah Ba'ad Hazkarat Nishmata, Began Eden Tehe Menuchata, Lachen bal harachamim yastireha beseter kenefav leolamim. Vitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata. Vitanuach al mishkava b'shalom. Vinomar. Amen. Please be seated. Our formal time together here at the chapel is drawing to a close. The family asks that contributions in her memory, donations in lieu of flowers, may please be made to one of two important organizations: the Dementia Society of America, or, as you heard, an organization for which she gave so much of herself, the Burlington County Animal Alliance. Additionally, following interment, which will make our way in processional to Locust Wood shortly, guests, family, and friends are welcome back to Amara and Brian's home at 6 William Penn Drive in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. That's 6 William Penn Drive in Downingtown. Psalm 91.